See if it's gonna... All right. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Wes. This is the World of Art and Magic podcast, where we talk about the intersection between psychology, creativity, and spirituality. And today I have my new friend, Can, with me. Can, do you give us a brief introduction?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm John. Born in Turkey, studied interaction and environmental design. Then now I live in Germany since like 10 years, and I'm doing environmental concept art basically, and study right now at the same time game development and research, and doing my master's. And yeah, I think in short that's it.
Okay. And so we were talking a little bit before we started this podcast that your research in game development has been more not on the side of like game design, but on how game development is influencing society. Is that the way it is that you would say it? Like the implications of gamification and that sort of thing?
Yeah, like the institute that I'm studying in calls Cologne Game Lab, and they like started like 7-8 years ago, and their main purpose was also creating studies on game development. So they look into every aspect of game development, from educational games, impactful games, journalist games. Even we check into, for example, games like I think it calls the game or something. When you remember the game, you have to declare that you lost the game because you remembered the game. Or we check games in their more capital interests. We check in human psychology, because when we do something, we got excited, you release some hormones, and we try to understand what kind of hormones we can give players and keep that running. And it could have its kind of evil applications, let's say, and it could also use for good terms, like on education for schools or on health situations, so that we can use gamification aspect to teach people some certain patterns to children so that they can heal better. For example, you can use it on physiotherapy and many other applications. So on game development, we don't just check practical aspects of it, like classical game design, programming, game arts, but also really writing and talking about it and how it's going to change the future, more or less.
So do you think that gamification of of our world you think it's on our empathy? Do you think that that's like where we're going to see the biggest growth in game development? Is like in these sectors that are not necessarily related to just entertainment?
Yeah, it's still used, but I think we are going to see it more and more different applications. Like we talk about integration of AI, of course, is part of it. You can when we talk about gamification, it's applicable to nearly everything. But for that, of course, you do research first. Like you need data, right? You check on papers, you check on people, you check on their needs, and after that needs, then you can think that, okay, how can I use the gaming aspect, the positive gaming, to define something or do people to do some certain things, or maybe change their opinions on something. And so definitely, I think we're going to see it in the future more, not just on entertainment projects.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because on the one hand, like over the last several years, I feel like we've seen examples of how this can be used in negative ways, and then also in positive ways. Like you said, you can use it to teach somebody like something educational, right? Because there's so many games that they've really gotten it down to where they're able to keep you engaged with something over a long period of time. And it seems like that's something that's been missing in the educational system for quite a while as well, right? And so these applications have a chance to kind of fill in this gap, as long as they're not used in a manipulative way.
Yes, definitely. But I think it's still like it's a matter of money also, right? Like the institutions needs to invest money on these topics. It's also a little bit also political. For example, in Germany, anything new first, the Germans will be very, also politics will be careful first. Like, hey, let's check onto this. Brokers also are thing, so it will take a while, so that they can then, after they sure that, okay, this is going to do something good, they can take in. I mean, we know that in some aspects it's already used, not that yet widely. But of course, as I said, it could be everywhere used, right? Like, for example, arms training, also in military. I mean, all the game idea actually came out of the first computer also, like, because they needed more computing power. And then the computers, by the playing chess game, first produced. So there was always also military interest investing so much money in it. And now they see that, hey, wait a second, I can give some people VR programs and some educational data. So instead of sending a $400,000 rocket middle of somewhere, I can educate people through kind of by games a little bit, and so that they can really use this knowledge further in combat situations or than real life ammunition trainings. This is, of course, more kind of an ethical question of it, if it should be done or not.
Yeah, and that immediately kind of goes into this idea of like what happens whenever you're basically controlling a drone like a game. Like how far removed can we be from human interactions that it could end up turning into, you know, a gamification of war, which would be.
Yeah, no, it is. It is also, of course, critical. I mean, like serious game aspect, like a game that you play and learn something through it, let's say. Not only, but I just very shorten it. For example, this War of Mine, the game. It's an entertainment project, but it's also a serious game at the same time. Because in this game, you really learn about war. You're a civilian. You are not a super combat hero, blah, blah, ego shooter. You try to survive, like many of us will be in kind of situation. This is a good example. For example, how serious games could be used also in for me, it's a good example, could be used in entertainment projects. Because still entertainment, it's a good game. But you learn also quite a lot from it. Like, I didn't know about the war, what happened in that area. So now I have a little bit more knowledge about this, what happened there.
Yeah, it's also like the ultimate empathy machine. It's interesting to think of like art as almost like an empathy technology that's evolved over time, right? Like we've had in the beginning, we had you know, like cave paintings, and we had like these word of mouth stories, and then eventually that evolved into novels and plays, and then now we've entered into this domain where it's films, but more than anything, it's gaming. And I feel like personally, I don't know what games it is that you grew up loving, but I feel like there's such an untapped ability for games to tell stories, because you're put into the position of the character, right? And so it's like a direct line of like empathy with whatever story it is that you're trying to tell, like you said, like a war story or something like that. And you know, like I guess it's a little bit disappointing that the game industry, at least in the AAA area, has gone like the pachinko machine route, where everything is like they're trying to cash cow the audience. You know what I mean?
Like AAA wise, like art wise, I definitely agree. And there is a boom on game industry also happened because of Corona pandemic. Like we need to also take games as not like part of media, like film, books. They're all part of media, and the game is a new form media that is just brings more money and also reach out to everyone much better than films. Like also independent wise, no one could roll films. And you see that if you will check the statistics, it's like how the film industry going down, and at the same time the game industry booms up.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be higher and higher as we got more AR, VR games. I mean, I think they're gonna have another 3-5 years, but they are going to also reach a point where every household has a VR unit. Like someone, we are not there yet, but it's coming up. And when it comes to the triple A's, I think this is a personal thing. It's like empires. Like, like you grow bigger, and bigger, and someone you're dealing with so much mass amount of money, you cannot think about artistic vision of it anymore.
For sure.
Like for example, I'm thinking about companies, Blizzard, like what kind of opinions I have about it. Now we have Activision Blizzard. It gives a different feeling. Like when you check games and things and whatever comes up, news, like everything, right? It doesn't look good. Now you think that like how a kind of a artistic or like childhood dream like company, right? Like from Diablo 1 to till now, like how it turned out. Yeah, capitalism.
Yeah.
Basically, right? But I think that's the thing. Like, I don't know that much about it. Also, didn't look it up in a business wise. But I think it's also about its size. We also need to think about as consumers about games, what we expect from games. Sometimes, I'm rolling in Steam and I'm seeing some negative reviews. It's still a game. It's not therapy program. It's not going to change your life better. I'm sorry, it's gaming. So sometimes I see so high expectations from a game. I'm like, hey, these guys are like 10 people. Like, I understand your expectation, but we need to also stay real. They cannot maybe deliver that. Maybe they will deliver that, but in 10 years, if they have the money, right?
Yeah.
And Triple says at the same time, big, very big money. We're talking about games that has more budget than if super expensive Hollywood films. Like I don't remember which one. One of the Assassin's Creed games, I think from Ubisoft, cost of nearly like $500 million. Right? It's a game. That's a game. Like in the end, it's a game. Right?
Yeah.
You play and right away you produce the next one. You have marketing, you have development, everything. Each group, never sleeping business, right? They have studios everywhere. Even some of them has their art studios somewhere around the world, so that when these guys finish and when the sun rises on the other point, that these guys can open their laptops, grab it and go on producing.
Yep.
So, and I think this is one of the biggest problems. These companies, either they have to go really small, but why? I mean, they have stock markets, so they want to grow and earn always more and more. That's the idea of it, right? As a business. And that's why we are seeing every day, I think, from big AAA companies, less having fun games. Visually, everything is stunning. I mean, visual-wise, everything is stunning, but the game aspect of it gets every way a little bit more disappointing. I agree.
Yeah, they gotta make that money back somehow. And it really is like it's like Goliaths or something trying to duke it out. You got like EA, Activision, you've got Sony and Microsoft, and everybody's trying to like get a piece of their pie and get ready for this next big transition it is that we're going to go for, because that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to like what players do you have on your side that the competition doesn't have, that you can be like, well, we got this game, because everything is so it's almost like we're going into kind of like a uni-platform kind of thing, right? Where it's like if you have Steam and you have a Steam controller or whatever, then you can pretty much play anything it is that you can get on the PS4 almost, or yeah.
No, I agree. Definitely, there is I mean, when we talk about AAAs, I think it's hard to talk about only its artistic side. It's very much business.
Yeah, they're huge, and what's interesting, like you were talking about Blizzard, I mean, that's something that I think would be interesting to look at from a research perspective. Is empires and companies seem to have this same trajectory, right? Like you have the people that start it, and they have the ideas, and those ideas break through some sort of a mold, and they create like this new kind of status quo. And then on the opposite end of that, that empire falls eventually, right? Because like it can't withhold that same creativity isn't there, because it can't exist in something that is as huge as that possibly, and maybe that huge empire can't maintain itself at that level forever.
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's about also who is the head of the company. Like I also read about the Larian Studios, who made the Baldur's Gate 3 in the end time and Divinity series.
Yeah.
They also, Microsoft wanted to buy them, and they say, no, we are good. They're like, we are good.
Yeah.
The owner of the guy said, like, in this is, I'm not done yet. I mean, I got aged, but I'm not done yet. We are good. So, and there's also an aspect, like they see that, hey, we are just doing fine, thank you. Yeah, it will be amazing, right? Building a
Yeah.
small company, you grow it up as a business term, right? And
Yeah.
you sell it to a huge company with a huge potential of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's good business. And he's like, no, I'm happy. I'm happy with what we are doing. I think we are doing fine.
Yeah.
And like there's also another aspect. Like, so not every company has to do it. But lastly, I like there's also new aspect in the game. It's like marketing aspect for indies, like which we call community engagement. Like my favorite games last times, like Satisfactory, Deep Rock Galactic, and they're all like Hell Let Loose, and I don't know, they're all small companies. Starts like, I don't know, 15 people, 50 people, then grows up bigger, but stay with their one IP and try to connect with their customers, in this case, players, at the same time, and they're giving good products. I mean, I really barely remember when was the last time I bought a AAA game. I really don't know, because I'm just waiting for a while and see that, okay, maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as I said before, I also wrote a small paper about CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like marketing and calculation disaster. It's like if you just check Google analytics from CD Projekt Red, it like in a nearly 8 months or something, they dropped from 100 to 18 or something. They are losing their total worth of 80. And CD Projekt Red last time was not the biggest anymore. They were the biggest second or something. And one project, one mistake, and you decrease from that much of value as a company. So it's
Wow.
crazy. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
if you're a very big company and give not deliver product in the
Mm-hmm.
same time?
Yeah, and that's another example of what you were saying about like what does management look like, right? Because I've met people that have worked in that company, people have heard it online that management was trying to push it out the door, and everybody knew that it wasn't ready.
Yeah. But like when you have stakeholders and one of your cash flow comes from stakeholders and they say that, no, we have to push this, otherwise we are losing a huge tremendous of money, cannot do
Yeah,
that much. And that's why I'm the part that I'm saying about the customers. Like, of course, I think company promise way too much.
yeah,
And I understand also the consumer's sadness, but also it's extreme to send some, I don't know, death threats, right, for a game. Like also happened on No Man's Sky, the same,
yeah,
the level of disappointment. Um, for me, that's also interesting part of games. It's absurd. It's a game. It's a game. Right. It really, okay, it's art still, but it's a game. It's
yeah,
still fictional world. Like,
yeah,
and I think there's also the power of the games, right? Like they want to have this immersive experience so much. Like it's a part of it. Like we all like I think
yeah,
games like to escape from reality and
yeah.
immerse ourselves through gaming. Like think about the level of disappointment that you send death threats to people. That your game was that good. That's quite crazy. That's quite crazy.
Yeah. So you're talking about the transmedia aspect of Cyberpunk. I'm
Yeah.
curious, what did you learn about that from like a storytelling perspective? Like, I think
Yeah.
Star Wars was kind of the first one that broke that idea that you could have something that you could explore in books, comics. You could collect the
Yeah.
toys, games.
Yeah. Yeah. True, true, very
Yeah.
true. Like, I mean, there's a guy. I can just say the name, Henry Jenkins, and this guy is he's the person who talks about this when it comes to transmedia storytelling,
Okay.
and he's the person. Like, he has kind of books. He has like he says it's like called item Pop Jenkins Transmedia Storytelling 101 to 202. He in detail talks about it. So I will try to sum up a little bit, because last time I wrote a paper about this. I can a little bit sum up, but not super in detail. So what Cyberpunk does very well there, they release Cyberpunk game, then they put Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which kind of works like a small prequel story, and they explain better there, for example, cyberpsychosis and some problem, because you don't really understand. Now with the new patch is a little bit different, new DLC, but in this first Cyberpunk game, you play the game, there is a kind of cyberpsychosis, but you don't really understand what it really is. In the Edge Runners, though, it really focuses on this. Like, it's all about cyberpsychosis and some other scenes that you see it. And the whole world is all perfectly aligned, right? Like the telephone call, the audio calls, the scenes you see, everything's from Night City. And when also doesn't that help, they have a music video that also works as a prequel story for the Edge Runners, which combines the story with them other some stuff. And you see other some firm details of it was Zetatech or another firm that has a pharmacy scandal and the person dies for it. And when you want to know more, you have, of course, the original FRP book, like role-playing game, right? And you can read all through there the detailed universe. Then you have also comic books. The comic books has, like, for example, Trauma Team. There is a small comic book series just only for about Trauma Team, and it explains a small story from the eyes of a Trauma Team, how these guys work. And all of these links, right, it builds a gigantic universe. But to understand it complete, you check different media canals. And there is also not only storytelling, but also marketing strategy. And it works. It works. And as you said, Star Wars was one of the first. I mean, before the Star Wars release, there was already George Lucas hired someone to write a book about Star Wars, about the Luke Skywalker, about the Luke Skywalker. And I think 1 year after the film released, with a huge budget, of course. And then they are like, oh, wait, we have game characters. And they experience more. Jenkins also talks about it. For example, everyone on that time had toys of Boba Fett. Every kid kind of, like a special boy, like played with it. And the character is so loved. Now they push their own characters, TV series about a bounty hunter, or like Mandalorian became super thing. It was a side character. It was a just cool looking side character. That's it. But it loved so much. It played through with the toys and everything so much. It's a new franchise.
Mm-hmm. So is that something that you think about whenever you're doing your own creative work? Because you're also a concept artist. So do you think about this in terms of, like, I'm sure you have stories and ideas that you want to communicate, right?
I wouldn't call it in a transmedia aspect. I wouldn't call it, because I think this will be a different game. Like if I'm producing, let's say I'm a small company and I'm releasing a game, and maybe then I can think that, hey, maybe we want to make a board game, or maybe a small comic book, maybe a small anime version of it or something, so that I can have more viewers into my game or the game to other, because there are also different media projects, right? That's why it's called transmedia. Each medium has their own people, and you bring up everything all together. But concept art wise, no, I wouldn't say not for concept art.
Do you think that, so is what originally drew you to the idea of like studying transmedia, was it just you were interested in it, or do you now have I guess I could ask, do you have a different perspective on it now that you didn't before?
The main aspect was this, like, I want to really write something about Cyberpunk because I like the game and the world and it was like, as I read what it's about transmedia, it was all over the place. I need to talk about this because it's a very successful project. Also, like budget wise, you see that again if you check CD Projekt Red's stock market, you will see that as they put the Edge Runners, they start gaining a huge push again. right? Like 20 or something from 18 to 30s. I mean, these are like percentages really big. So you see that not only transmedia is cool, no, it's successful. It's marketing also, marketing-wise successful. And of course, I also talk about transhumanism in this strongly because it's all about like it's a cyberpunk genre, and each game approaches transhumanism a little bit different. Like all of them explain a transmedial, transhumanistic story, all of them all together, and that's why I talk about it.
Okay, so how is it a transhumanistic story? Like how would you sum that up?
Uh, like it's if there anyone watching right now about more detail on transmedia, I will try to simplify for me because I'm not a professor in this. So like transmedia is like it's like an idea, and the idea is that we don't have to wait for our evolutions to become better human and eventually turn to a post-human. And post-human is somewhere that we are not in our reach yet. Like posthumans will be like they will maybe have different feelings that we don't have these feelings. Like we have five senses, maybe they will have more senses. A human that we don't know yet, a human that will be more human than human, whatever you describe the human. And the transhuman is kind of a transition phase to post-human. So when we talk about this, for example, we will talk about new technologies, especially like uploading, like that we can have our memories and upload somewhere, and we can create a human being again. Where medicine is so strong that healing everything, and people are not only staying with their own, just only our physical meat body, but now we can enhance the body with robotics. Maybe we can heal people with nanotechnology. Also, the AI work is so strong that maybe we can merge AI and human in a way that we will work more, function better and faster. So we don't have to wait, I don't know, 3,000, 3 million years again. Evolution does something, miracles that happen to us, and we will go a little bit better. And then they're like, hey, we have all this technology. Why we don't use it to make us better, like better version of us? But there's also critical aspects of it. For example, bioconservatives will say that, hey, like a little bit also in God-wise, like we are produced in our own way. This could even increase the rich and poor gap even more, right? It's not like everyone is able to buy this. And we see it already, actually. Like Cyberpunk, if you ask Cyberpunk when, there's this website like, what was it? Like they talk about Cyberpunk and say, when it's Cyberpunk, Cyberpunk is now. Because you and me, for example, we have access to internet, we have food and stuff, and there's also people in the world goes into a trash hole, electronic trash hole, and they pull out small chips to collect some rare materials out there so that they can sell it and take kind of food. And on the side, you have these expansive stores where white collar or a little bit middle class people could buy their small technology, use it only 6 months and throw it away. And on the other side, people collecting in trash yards all this product. Or you see kids like producing kind of their own prosthetic arms with trashes because they don't have any access of medical care. This is already actually one point cyberpunk, right? So of course I'm more in the corporate way with higher standards, not really poor. And transhumanism like looks into this everything. Like transhumanism checks it with more positive sides, but of course it's also important to think about in a critical way. Like, is it really what we need? And in the cyberpunk, we will see that because in cyberpunk, there is not really sickness. But for example, you can change your body parts if you have the right money. But at the same time, the main character dies because of abusement of uploading technology. Somebody without consent uploaded a person like Johnny Silverhand, Keanu Reeves, into, and then our character plugs in their body and dying because of this, because they want to steal this data. So, okay, is this technology really good? Like, if it's that good, why you're dying? Or you see this evil character, Adam Smasher, 98% robotic. If you think that it's a dream, right? He's not really human. He doesn't need sleep. He doesn't need food, and he's super strong. He's not going to die. But like, how much of him is human left? Can we even call him human anymore? Like when you're 98% just robotics. And Cyberpunk asks these questions quite a lot. And also cyberpsychosis. After you put so much electronics in your body, someone in the cyberpunk universe, your body, your brain doesn't carry it, and you start to have a kind of a psychotic hallucination attacks, and you might start killing people around you because of the old cyber behavior you carry. So there is the technology, but there is also a critic of it. Like you can access it with a big price. So this back and forth game, I think Cyberpunk explains it very well.
Yeah, so much of this goes back to Philip K. Dick, which is interesting to me because like I wasn't expecting this, but on my YouTube channel, I've done some video analysis on Blade Runner and Minority Report.
They're also transhumanism was also part of it.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was taking so the author Philip K. Dick, the guy who wrote "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," which is what Blade Runner is based off of.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. His stuff is really interesting. It's really trippy because like his portrayal of like what it is going to be like in order to live during this time when we enter into this cyberpunk world is such an accurate portrayal. I mean, you think back to so the reason why I did the video analysis on these was that I took some of his public domain stories and turned them into comics. That's part of what I'm doing on this channel.
Yeah.
Because I'm just such a huge fan of his work, and I think his work is so relevant in so many different ways. But off the top of my mind, when I think of Blade Runner, the first thing I think of is that it does a very accurate portrayal of what man during this time is going to look like when we first meet Deckard in Blade Runner, right? Because Deckard is sitting down, and what is he doing? He's flipping through the paper, and he's looking for a job, and he's in an overcrowded metropolis where people are basically living on top of one another, almost in a kind of squalor-like environment. And there's this, you have this portrayal of this character, and then you have the Tyrell Corporation, right? Which is almost like the corporation itself is like this edifice, like this godlike giant that exists in the world. And so there's this contrast between the two of like you were saying, like we have this element that Cyberpunk, even when it wasn't called Cyberpunk, was always touching on, was like we're entering into this phase where the gap between the rich and the poor and the people who have real power in this world and the disenfranchised is like it's growing wider and wider, right? Yeah. It's
like definitely. I mean, like also Minority Report too. We see it right away. These examples of like we can say maybe like they were gifted. I think in Minority Report, these people because like they didn't have enhanced technology. I'm not sure.
No,
I don't really remember, but you see right away the abusement usage of it, and it's the kind of a critical aspect. Also, of course, also the this police enforcement that they can predict future already and stop the things even before they happen, and see that okay, it's a cool technology, but you see right away the abusement of it. But of course, it needs to have a kind of a catching narrative, right? It's exciting, but it's again critical. It's of course critical.
Yeah, there's so many interesting questions that come up from Minority Report. I think that like that's kind of a movie that has so many interesting questions that people haven't touched on. And I've tried to touch on some of them in my analysis series, but like, for example, you have this kind of dichotomy between the rich and the poor in the sense that the central question that John Anderton, Tom Cruise's character, is faced with is now that he is aware that he's going to kill Leo Crow, and he doesn't know why, does he now have the ability to change his future? Because if that is so, in a sense, it's like it's the control of information in a sense, because they have the information, but the other people that have that were going to commit a murder but didn't because they were stopped by pre-crime, did they have also that chance that if they were shown what it is that they're gonna do, that they could then choose not to do that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, where's that freedom of where's the free will, right? And it's interesting that, like, if you have that kind of information, then you're imposing on somebody's free will. Like, there was something that I haven't finished the Minority Report series yet. I had to stop after a few parts, but there's some research that I've been doing that I want to dig further into. And one of that was this idea that you can, it's is totally Minority Report. It's like, basically, you have somebody that you think has committed a crime, and you put them into an MRI machine, and you ask them questions, and you try to see if the part of the brain that is remembering something, or if it's novelty. Like, is it a new information, or is it information it is that the brain has already been exposed to, and that this could potentially mean that you were involved with the crime. And it's interesting that this technology, or this film, kind of predicted these technologies, and it raises those questions. It's like, well, maybe you can point at something on an MRI machine and say, like, well, they didn't know about this, so therefore, um, or they knew about this event, you know, when we told them, so therefore, they may have been involved in the crime, but maybe not. Maybe just by telling the person that, uh, you're setting off those same triggers in the MRI machine. Like, who is it? Who is to say what that is? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, I, I think Minority Report in this aspect also, they are, of course, a science fiction version of kind of childhood memories and stuff.
yeah,
Like if you go there, like human psychology or criminology, like why somebody kills someone. Like you need to, I think, I mean, I didn't read that much about this, like a little bit only, but I think you need to prepare a room for it, right? Like, except of that, you are a sociopath. Like, I'm talking about not in a degrading way, but more in a like a sickness way. Because if I'm not producing some sort of hormones in my head, like empathy, that will cause me, and I do feel bad after I hurt someone living or someone, I can't really do anything about this. Like when I kill someone, I don't feel nothing because my brain says dead. Like how guilty I am, right?
mhm,
And personally, I think that in this kind of questions, like in real life situation, now for fall minorities, all about the state's responsibility. I mean, I'm a person that whenever somebody dies, I will blame the state, not the people.
mhm,
Let's say
mhm.
like that. Because it just didn't happen. That situation didn't happen in just one day. It
Yeah,
prepared that moment. It came to this clash point, explosion, and it happened. And I think Minority Report also kind of plays around with this too. Like how much
totally.
of it? I think it was starting with a husband if he's going to kill his wife in the beginning
Yeah,
of the scene,
mhm,
and he said, "No, I didn't did it. I didn't want to do it. I just thought about this." Um, like everyone has dinner elements in some point, something doing terrible, or maybe not. Some people has more, some people has less. Um, but you need to prepare the environment for it. So I think Minority Report asking this question too,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
to sit of course with this dystopic scenario, because for me it's dystopy. It's definitely dystopy.
Oh, totally. And, like, okay, so one of the other things that I noticed that I talked about in my video series was that, so we have the opening scene where he stops the guy from murdering his wife,
Yeah,
and then we see him. We see him. He's jogging at night. The main character is jogging at night through basically a derelict. Looks like something out of Blade Runner. Like he's going through a derelict neighborhood, and he's going to buy drugs, right? And while he's running through there, there's this great storytelling moment where the environment is really telling the story, which is why it is that I think the visual aspect of it is so compelling. and what we do as far as like illustration and concept art,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because he's running through this environment, and there's projected on the wall, there's propaganda from the state, and they're saying that because of pre-crime, murder is at an all-time low. There's no crime anymore. And so there's this big political push. There's this push to get you to accept the idea that that pre-crime has completely wiped out any kind of criminal activity. But he's running through an environment that looks like it's full of criminal activity, right? And so there's kind of this insinuation with the story that he is that there's kind of like there's this underworld, and then there's the upper class, right?
yeah,
We just play off of it, and this propaganda is just it's just echoing in empty halls. Like nobody's there to listen to it, but it's there, and it's always this pervading sense. And that's something else that Philip put in his books, was like this pervading sense of like somebody being able to use media to tell you what reality is, even though right in front of your face it's not that. But they're able to manipulate and control your perspective on things through this narrative that they're just constantly putting in your ear.
yeah, yeah. Like, in prior to your question, by the way, if I use transmedia storytelling in my concepts, but environmental storytelling indeed, by the way, because I think it's a good way of telling story. By the way, Henry Jenkins talks about environmental storytelling too in some of books, because he's
Oh, yeah?
always he's all about storytelling. It's also how I came up to it, because I was reading about environmental storytelling.
Mhm.
I think he called it even narrative architecture, because how you
Okay.
can do it. There are like 4 or 5 different views. He was checking in more games.
Mhm.
But yeah, Minority Report is also very strong with environmental storytelling techniques, definitely.
Totally. So we're about 40 minutes in, dude. I still want to look at your. I want to look at your art. I want to show.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah, of
show.
course.
Look at stuff because you've got some dope stuff, man. All right. Let's see here. Entire screen.
While you do that, I also check something very short, because I need to give.
All right. I can't see your. Oops, here we go. Okay.
Yay!
So
This is the last
this is
one.
right
Yeah.
here.
My
This
super
was
rush.
your. This was your
Yeah,
Neo Tokyo exponential
yeah.
reality
It's the
interior.
interior part. Yeah, yeah. So much
So
pain.
what? What? So okay. So wait, you did this in Blender and you did this in Photoshop. So
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
laid out like basically the 3D objects, and then you painted over it. How much of this is a paint over, and how much of this is like a rendering of?
I think I will call 80% is 3D. But like
Okay.
my perspective of the concept part, it goes in the direction of more 3D and less painting, because of
Okay.
fastness. Like if I want to change something, I can just change the angle and that's it, right? If I'm
Mm-hmm.
drawing everything with
Totally.
2D, it has to start from zero.
Yeah. So you like to work from 3D and then get your composition down, and then go back and like change stuff up in 2D. That's what you prefer to do.
It's quite a lot back and forth. If you click on the next image, if you go to, there is an arrow item on the right on the image. If you click on that, like it will
Oh, that
start.
one.
Yeah, this was the exterior scene. I'm much happy with this one. And this
Uh-huh.
was also, of course, done in Blender, lots, but there were lots of things were missing. Why? Because I'm not super proficient with Blender. So I need to figure out okay, I want to have here lights, doesn't work. So I cropped it lots of images, night images, and edit them in the image. So the process, I mean, my person process will go like this, like what kind of image I want to do and what kind of color or maybe light situation I have. Then I will Google lots of images first, like reference images, because like I cannot really think about a very night dark city. Like I have a image, but most of the time it's wrong. It's
Yeah.
not really representing what I have in my head. So then it will come to lots of thumbnailing actually, but in our station challenges, of course, you never have so much time. So if you scroll down, you will see some scribbles actually, like some basic. And this was the first thing I was thinking. Okay, I want to do a kind of nearly biopunk like city. I wanted that is it like a city with kind of built like valleys and a gigantic squid like thing. Like whatever I had in my head, like Japan, squid, pipes, valleys. I wanted to mesh all of them, like make it a
Okay.
huge dystopic environment. Dystopic, bigger, better. So then I was thinking, okay, what kind of silhouette this city could have, what kind of form. Then I just did this kind of tower and I just put pipes. Then I think, oh, this thing looks like a squid. And Japan people also have, like Japanese people have also squid thing. Then I just think, oh, squid could be really used also in a wouldn't inappropriate for the culture. Then if you scroll down,
Mhm.
um,
Oh, yeah.
then I did some like, okay, how the city blocks can look like, how the lights will come up. And I play around. I play around. So,
Mhm.
and if I'm happy with this, I will do kind of drawing. I did some how this gigantic structure could work like I want to put a little bit like Wayne, like think like it emphasizes this organic idea. It's quite a lot back and forth. So checking,
Yeah.
collecting references, drawing, putting 3D. Sometimes then you spend so much time on 3D, you forget what you want to do. So going back to sketches again, or even try to do some black and white sketches could also really help. Like just have thing. But for me, the best
Mhm.
idea is, especially for environments, you already know what kind of light situation you want to have. Like light
Yeah.
changes everything. Is like the first thing first, the light scenario, like composition, basic. Like, do you use a S composition? Do you use a round composition in your scene? What is your cut? In this one, for example, I wanted to use two diagonal lines. I can show it like this. If you go to total top,
Okay.
so you will see
Mhm.
that I have like slightly narrowed down diagonals and one building like vertical. I wanted that this in the end of the spotlight and the front triangle forms, they're like subtly pointing somewhere. And if you
Mhm.
careful look that you barely see a figure raising up in the
Mhm.
sky, but it's barely there.
Mhm.
But to make it
Mhm.
that visible, I need to have a understanding of the composition first. Like you need to read a line there. And for me,
Yeah.
in this case, I will call this image from my aspect successful because I could read
Mhm.
it through. But I have to do lots of going back because you add like 2 3 point lights more, and suddenly your eye, the direction changes. Then you're like, okay, this light was too much, delete it, check all the color balance again, and go back. And I think this was the process for this one, for this image.
It just looks awesome, man. I mean, it has like
Thank
this
you.
very
Thank you.
ominous kind of, I mean, it feels kind of like, it's a really cool take on the Neo Tokyo Art Station Challenge because it kind of has a kaiju kind of vibe to it, but at the same time, that's not the emphasis. But there's like this kind of ominous vibe of like it really invites your imagination to figure out like what I like. Whenever you look at the sketches, you can really see what it is, and you can see how it is that you've incorporated into the environment, which is really cool. Like I like this right here. It almost seems like it could be like, I don't know, some sort of like mobile thing that could land in a pod like this and then go to another one and
Yeah.
submerge
Yeah.
itself or something. You know what I mean? Like there's an interesting mix between the kind of organic and inorganic um, elements in the piece. I really dig it, man. So
What
what is how,
sorry, please ask me, please.
so this first one right here that we were just looking at. So what is this? How is this related to it, or is it not related
The
at all?
idea was like the squid-like form is kind of whole controlling, like bio-enhanced AI. It's just strolled in the whole city and is collecting data from everywhere. Like the city is controlled by itself, is a kind of a gigantic brain-like thing. And this is a server room. Basically, this is inside the core center, the most important center of this scoot-like thing. And this is like in my imagination, like I want to have a kind of organic tube-like thing. I wish I had a little bit more time to play with this brain-like idea, but like you need to rush a little bit, right? Um, so, and I wanted something that will represent an expansive PC, like these gamer PCs where you have lots of blacks and lights and pipes and that was my main influence. And I want to break it down to turn into a lab rat kind of thing. But I wanted that this is the server room. This thing, this gigantic thing is it's a gigantic hard disk and a computer. It's a merge of brains and pipes and everything. It has its own cooling system. It has its own nerve electricity lights, and it's controlling the whole city. I mean, this thing goes down, the whole city goes down. That was the idea. I wish, honestly, I could just explore it more with call-out sheets. But for the call-out sheets, unfortunately, I really didn't have any time anymore, which is very important for the actually ArtStation environmental challenge. Like some people always like, this is me, what I get from like this, my third challenge, I think, like you focus on the two first big images, but if you will check some winners from the other quiz, like you will see that how important the collage is, because it explains really the details. And also if it would be a game environment, the person who needs to really put this in this game engine needs to understand how all this environment really works, because you're going to walk through in the right. I couldn't really do that in that time. That will be my critic this project. I mean, it needs definitely better call out sheets to explain these details more.
Okay, let's look at some of the other stuff that you got here. This is okay.
This is actually started like a hobby project, and like I didn't draw like 2-3 years anything on Photoshop, and I want to check my skills again. This is how it started, and I'm really enjoying working like Giga-like forms. And I was trying to find here a kind of a new organic, like cosmic horror-like creature, let's say. Something new, like how it will develop here is the egg is opening up and you will see all these organic things. And I want to stay all in gray. I like actually working quite a lot in gray, because if you figure out the gray and all the shades and values, the rest is easy. Actually, the rest is easy. But this is also a process. For example, if I will have more in our time in ArtStation challenge, this is also what I will add in, definitely. I will first do kind of a black and white drawings, maybe the storyboards there, and maybe even some objectives, then move into Blender. Like these stuff are important.
Yeah, this is really where the meat of it is, because this is showing the thinking process and how something actually functions. Have you worked in the game industry on like games, like indie games, or like
small games? I mean, I did more for board games and startup projects, but most of them in the end stuck in the middle, like they didn't move on. And I had a couple of like game jam stuff and indie games, small, but I wouldn't say that I have a release game yet. In the last project, I did a 3 months of internship by Spell Fusion. It's a small indie company in Germany, and they are working on a kind of like a card game, co-op card game, where player needs to switch different environments. And for them, I did like, right now it's not here shared, but I did tons of environment assets, not like key shots, but just really building plant version 2, plant version 3, plant version 5, like lots of thumbnails, like, I don't know, hundreds of them, I guess.
How did you like that? Did you feel like that really stretched your design experience?
No, in one case, of course, it's a little bit boring, like when you just create thumbnails and thumbnails and thumbnails. But also, my good experience as a concept artist is you really see that, like, you push the thumbnails, and someone, you draw first what is in your head, then you draw with references, and then now you push the limits. Like, it's there. You've seen this before. It's cool, but you've seen this before. And if you really push it further, in the end, you start finding out something new. But that takes time and nerves, because you really, like, you check it and you're like, I found something original. Then you Google it. No, somebody did it like 10, 15 years ago. Most probably the same thing. So, and reference board is very important. Like, what kind of material you want to work with, and be able to illustrate it, so that there's where I think the drawing skill is important, especially if you're rendering materials and stuff like that.
I love this piece right here. This is it's very Geiger, very Biksinski.
Yeah, both of them, I love them. Both of them.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny. Like, they're kind of like they're a favorite of like all concept artists, right? Like, there's something about the way that they drew forms and whatnot. But they were, but I don't think either one of them were. I guess Geiger was a concept artist in a sense, right? Like, but Biksinski wasn't. He was just a painter.
He was a painter. Yeah, definitely, he was a painter.
Yeah, he was a visionary. So yeah, these are really cool. I love this. This first one's really cool.
For example, this project I want to start it. The idea was, this is the part 1. It calls like Journey to Dwarven Bathhouse, and he said there is a small dwarf, like in the images, maybe you will barely see it, but I see that is the color range actually way too similar. I should make it blue or black or something. And there is a small guy is traveling to a bathhouse. And I want to kind of explore here this little bit toxic masculinity, like we see always dwarves, like rough men burning on blacksmithing and stuff. Then I'm thinking, what would this happens once you do the bathhouse? They want to hang around, have good time, and be naked all around, And I'm like, okay, but maybe I put they have a kind of a hidden bathhouse somewhere in a cave system, and where all these manly men, dwarven guys hangs around in this bathhouse. And just be themselves, just be boys, And this was the journey, the start of the journey. And there we see that the soul dwarves, that there's some kind of key shots, key environments that he's passing through to reach his destiny. And I hope to do the part 2 this year, like then the actual design of the bathhouse. If you go down, I try to break it down to like A, B, C, D. And this explains the A is the rocky spikes, like open area. Like, these are the lists that I gave to myself. This is what I'm going to do. And the top image is A, and second and third image are the B. So I'm going to do the C and the D in the next. So it's going to be a closed area, underground jungle, maybe steamy water, where the guy finds this bathhouse in a cave. I don't know. It's my kind of passion project. This is important part, material and mood board. I didn't do it before, but I definitely do it for every project now, nearly. Because like when you're exploring stuff, you got lost. Then you set your rules. You did research. You go back here. And you check, okay, these are my rocks. These are my character. This is going to be the scale. So you remember yourself what kind of scale you're working, so that you don't make a rock detail that should be that size becomes that size, then
Yeah.
everything suddenly feels so off scale.
Mhm.
And below you can see that the actual ugly sketches. These were the first sketches. This was like just and
Wow.
here is I use basically Unreal Engine,
Mhm.
and nothing in this image is purchased, by the way. It's just Megascans Unreal Engine, because Megascans has a deal, make a
Mhm.
deal with you in the beginning, say that if you use Unreal, like Megascans only Unreal Engine, you can use them. So this is what I did. I use all these Megascans to set up myself like this cinematic shots, and then I put each of them different cameras and said that, okay, which one I'm going to pick, which can I convert better, and then I choose, I think, 3 of them and move on with that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have some good compositions. These look really cool. Especially like this one. This one's really nice.
Yeah.
Let's see what else you got here.
This was I did again. This was for me again an ArtStation challenge. I wouldn't call it very original, but for me it was good to learn Unreal Engine, because the medieval back and forth ArtStation challenges, like if the medieval people will come to our world, how it will be, and if we go back to our world, what we will teach them, something like this.
Mhm.
And I thought, like, if they will come, the medieval people most probably like think about the big world, like they come to New York. Yeah, what will they will be homeless? That's what's going to happen. Right? Let's be honest. So I was thinking that, hey, let's make a kind of a half German, half a viaduct environment of
Mhm.
what they were building. And it didn't end, because suddenly they have a refugee problem. And they send these people there and say that, hey, this is your area, do whatever they want. So these guys, because they like to build castles and live on high places, they build a kind of a small town on the viaduct, capture
Mm.
that area, and they start living here. So now the homeless people is an environment for homeless people, and the people who lives, like on the left down, you will see this kind of an aerial view, like homeless area, viaduct town.
Mhm.
And that was the idea. But I think it could polish and explore more. But I got so lost in Unreal Engine. I'm like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I mean, I'm sure there's some homeless people that feel like they're in a medieval world anyway, right? In
Yeah,
their
no,
minds.
no, of course, it was critical. It was critical for me.
That's
It was critical. I just read the title. I'm like, come on, it's bullshit. Everyone knows what's going to happen. Let's not sugarcoat it. We have enough people who lives in medieval changes in middle of gigantic city forests. So we don't need to fantasize about this. And the idea here, but honestly, I think I kept the scale way too small. I thought that
Mm.
I was doing something gigantic. Then I realized it's just normal scale. I want to do concrete castles, like
Mhm.
medieval German castles, but built in concrete, so that
Mm.
really it has this brutalist aspect. Um, and again, first time using Blender in this case, and ended up with this one. I mean, painting this image was fun, because I wanted to also create an image which one looks like halfway like painted like.
Mhm.
So I really put a screenshot from Unreal Engine, then painted clouds and everything on it. That was fun. But what I imagined that feel a massive concrete building, and I just checked the real images again. That's why reference is important. I didn't have any references in this one, and I was like, no, it's just a normal church size. It's not big at all, actually, for medieval. It's just normal.
Mhm.
Um, that was the image.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
really.
enjoy painting this. I enjoy painting this one.
This was your first time playing around in Blender, you said, or the first time you played around in.
Unreal Engine. Unreal
in
Engine
Unreal?
for visual development, I would say. Yeah.
How how easy was getting a hold of Unreal? I mean, does it feel similar to playing around in Blender or
More or less. Of course, it's a
more
game
or less?
engine, and if you really want to have full out of it, you need a RTX graphic card, which I don't also. So, but it will help something over 3,000. It just gives you more options on lighting. But there's so good tutorials out there, and
Yeah.
you just follow the tutorial to kind of your own projects one by one,
Hmm.
and I think you came to that.
Have you found that knowing Unreal as a concept artist, has that helped you with with finding projects to jump in on, or do you feel like it's still in the infancy stage as far as your understanding?
I think it's still, but I think it's going to be more because like there were like I go to Gamescom every year and I had like 2 3 companies I talk with them, indie companies, but still they are big, like 50
Hmm.
to 100 people,
Yeah.
but still indie in this case, double A if you say.
Hmm.
Um, and these companies, most of them ask me this: "Wow, really good concepts. Can you put it also please in game engine?" And that brought me to this realization of okay, most of even these guys don't need concept artists. They hire outside, they outsource it if they, and in that point I realized okay, I think I need to merge more skills into that. So I try to
Hmm.
be right now like all stack, let's say a
Yeah.
full stack. Like I say that I can conceptualize it, model it, and put it in your game engine to run it. I wouldn't say right now I'm perfectly in this, not yet in this phase, still
Hmm.
learning. Um, but yeah, but also my main my interest on concept art, especially on environmental concept art.
That's cool, man. We're gonna have to wrap it up here in a minute, but let's take a look at this last
Yeah,
one
of
right
course,
here. 'Cause
of
I
course.
wanted to end it on this one. This one is just, it's pretty epic, man. You did this as a promo art for books, Soldiers
Yeah,
of. Go
this is a it, actually. Thank you for asking. This is an interesting piece because for this person, I did like for 1.5 year Fiverr, and
Mhm.
like it's a channel like they can hire artists for let's say small money.
Yeah.
Um, and as an artist, I wanted to try my chances first out there. So I want to earn a little bit money from my artwork, and this
Yeah.
is one of the projects that came out from there.
Mhm.
And and this person wanted to have this switch station thing, which I see very critical in so many aspects. Actually, could be much better. But I need to do something fast and good, and I use Blender and photo bashed it, and somehow it worked out pretty well. And somehow it was so got attention on my portfolio. And if you will see that I posted 7 years ago, I just left it in my portfolio. Like anything you see right now in my portfolio is like 1 years old. Because I wrote once artist like Chris Dorrit
Mhm.
to have his opinion on my portfolio. And one critic I got that like my portfolio is kind of got old.
Mm.
Everything got old. Like, and this is the basic, the most of the good ArtStation portfolios. You will see maybe 10, 15 images, but only the
Mhm.
selected ones.
Mhm.
So I had back in time, if you will check it maybe 1 year ago, we will see like 50 images. I have to depart from them. I
Yeah.
had to say goodbye. We had good times, but I have to depart from them.
For sure. Cool, man. Well, I'm gonna put your link to your art station in the description box below.
Oh, thank you, of course.
I'm guessing you have some socials and whatnot that I can post as well. You have
Mm,
social media?
not really. Not
Not
really.
really.
Not really.
Yeah.
I
What?
had it, but I'm very
Yeah.
invisible there. I had some Instagram or tried a little bit TikTok someone, but I realized it's taking way too much of my time.
Yeah.
I
For sure.
prefer drawing than investing time on that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Cool, man. Well, thank you for coming on and chatting with me.
Thank you
And
very much too, Bess.
and thanks to everybody who checked this video out. These podcasts come out every Friday. at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, unless somebody doesn't show up, and then it'll be the next week. So feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and have a good night, guys.